Constitution or you look at the laws that have been passed into law and say, never mind, we'll just ignore that. Instead, we are going to be in your face, we are going to be on your asses, and we are going to make sure you understand what democracy looks like.
You know, I was just wondering when progressive Democrats would do something more than just agree with half the country who's watching Elon Musk illegally invade the Treasury.
Hey everybody, Congressman Maxwell Frost here with many of my colleagues. We're here because an unelected billionaire has access to the private information of our constituents, but we want answers.
Yeah, so it's Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett here, and let me tell y'all, oversight is going to do our job. So we are here because we need to understand why it is that our Department of Treasury has been broken into, and we need to go ahead and handle the person that decided that they were going to have the audacity to go after our information.
Seth Magaziner from Rhode Island, former state treasurer. We need to know who is in control of the Treasury, what their permissions are, what their intentions are, and what they want to do with your money and your identity. We need answers now.
If nothing else, it's the start of actual legislative and judicial pushback against the Trump administration's constant disregard for American laws for the sake of an unelected billionaire who's deeply corrupt. Multiple Democratic legislators came out to voice their concerns in front of the Treasury Department.
We don't pledge allegiance to the billionaires. We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. We don't pledge allegiance to the creepy 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And so I want to make sure that my mother gets her Social Security check, not because she pledges allegiance to Elon, but because she pledges allegiance to the United States of America. I want to make sure your neighbor gets their tax refund, not because they pledge allegiance to the billionaire class, but because they pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And so we have work to do right now. Every single one of us has a responsibility to stand up to this fraud. And it is true, we have to reach out to everyone in this country, conservatives, liberals, Republicans, Democrats, and tell them that we have not months, we have not weeks, but we have days to stop the destruction of our democracy. We have work to do. And so we will fight with you to make sure that in this country, it is the people that rule. It is the people that rule, not the billionaires. We are taking back this country from Elon Musk.
The fact that an entire political party has allowed one unelected and very mediocre person bypass any and all laws that we've established and abided by in just a couple of weeks, that illustrates their commitment to ignore reality when a rich guy gives them money and the idea of supremacy. But the unapologetic Jasmine Crockett went on CNN to highlight the reality of our merit-based systems.
I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel a way and why you can't make me doubt who I am is because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education. This is why they are trying to literally say we won't fund the HBCUs, because they know that if they've already gone after affirmative action and they're saying, you know what, don't allow them to come into, say, these PWIs, as we call them, don't allow them to come into these institutions. We know why they created the HBCUs in the first place. It was because they wouldn't allow us into the white institutions.
If the beneficiaries of our country's very obvious history of building economic dominance off of the backs of enslaved people were willing to allow that history to be taught, it would be much harder to convince supporters that anyone who's not a rich, straight white man is automatically more qualified to access opportunities. So for people that got offended by Jasmine Crockett's truth-telling on CNN, they should have even more issues with Trump's evidence-free drumbeat of white supremacist views.
A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. But they actually came out with a directive to white. And we want the people that are competent.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense.
It's nothing except empty conclusions that replace facts with declarations from the mind of a white supremacist. He makes it extraordinarily clear that he believes competence comes with being an able-bodied cisgender white guy. And when disaster comes under the watch of someone that he considers the superior race, it's important for his propaganda to get out in front of it and blame the kinds of folks that this country has always blamed. It's on full display when he talks about literally handing over the keys to the government and Treasury Department to an unelected and very mediocre billionaire who's got dollar signs popping out of his eyes.
Some of these Doge engineers that Elon Musk has helping him are as young as 19 years old.
That's good. They're very smart, though, Peter. They're like you. They're very smart people.
Thank you. Have you met any of these guys?
No, I haven't seen them. They work actually out of the White House. They're smart people. Unlike what they do in the control towers, where we need smart people. We should use some of them in the control towers where we were putting people that were actually intellectually deficient. That was one of the qualifications, is you could be intellectually deficient. No, we need smart people. Some are young and some are not young. Some are not young at all. But they found great things. Look at the list of things. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll read off a list of 15 or 20 things that they found inside of the USAID. It has to be corrupt. Nobody could approve that. They could only approve that if they were getting kickbacks.
So he's got 100% confidence in Elon Musk's gang of criminals that he's never met, but he knows that they're really smart. And notice how easily he connects this very separate event to the air traffic controllers that he lied about the day of the DC plane crash. He was exposed on that same day for completely misrepresenting the facts and people involved in that disaster. But he'll reinforce the lies while talking about allowing Musk to invade the Treasury. He was so deep in that propaganda, he blindly promoted Elon's plan to dismantle USAID.
And Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he's brought to you that you've said, oh no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you know what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money, with the money. I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt. The real question is how much of a kickback?
So just like the time he followed Elon's tweet against passing a budget before Christmas, he's following his lead again on eliminating this program. Now, by the way, if USAID is giving kickbacks and only exists for corruption, why did Trump's administration sign off for funding it during his entire first term in office? Notice how the legitimacy of something is solely based off of whether or not it benefits their pickpocket agenda on any given day. And again, no evidence of any of this corruption. He just overuses terms like, no one has ever seen this. But he does oddly ignore the fact that Elon's latest target was investigating his company over its contracts in Ukraine. USAID's Inspector General was in the process of investigating its own public-private partnership between Musk's Starlink and the Ukrainian government at the time that the billionaire's Doge crippled the agency. An announcement from last May reads, the USAID Office of Inspector General, Inspections and Evaluations Division is initiating an inspection of USAID's oversight of Starlink satellite terminals provided to the government of Ukraine. Our objectives are to determine how, number one, the government of Ukraine used the U.S. aid-provided Starlink terminals. And number two, U.S. aid monitored the government of Ukraine's use of U.S. aid-provided Starlink terminals. So while Musk uses the country to protect his money and foreign interests, he's also helping nations like China to fill the gap in funding that U.S. aid filled, which would give them a chance at building more influence within countries that we've probably exploited ourselves. But this gang of unqualified oligarchs doesn't have the capacity to think that far, because they're too busy plundering this country for as much as they can before their supporters check their back pocket and realize that their dusty wallets are missing.
In 2017, Donald Trump and the Republican Party forced through one of the largest tax giveaways to the rich in modern American history. We're talking about CEOs and people being able to them proposing tax cuts on like tax write-offs on yachts and private jets, but most importantly, some of the most broad-based tax cuts for the rich and the 1% in this country that we have ever seen. So why is that important to today? Those tax cuts had a sunset period, and that sunset period occurs in 2025. The cost of these tax cuts are to the tune of about $4 trillion. And in order to extend them, you need to find $4 trillion. Well, where do you look? Under the guise of waste, they are going to try to cut and gut some of the most essential federal programs that we've got. So they want you to think that it's the viejita who's getting Medicaid, who's getting her insulin paid for on Medicaid, that is the waste, because what they don't want you to do is to look at US defense spending, particularly defense contractors,